We're going to wait 5 minutes for Member Williams. She's running late, and then we'll get started. So 5 minutes, we'll be back. We'll call the CRA Apopka community meeting to order. We'll get right into the meeting. Let's see, we need approval of minutes from November 6, 2024. Any changes, additions?
So moved.
Got a motion by member Draco, second by member Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Public comment? Public comment first? Okay. All right. Well, we can go ahead and anybody from the public wish to speak about? Nobody? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, do we have an invocation and a pledge?
We'll do that at just the regular council meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we got the team going to put the proposal out there, and that's what
Mayor, I think it's appropriate probably after the team probably present, then
Yeah,
they probably have some
right.
public comment after that.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
All right, thank you.
So we got Bobby, Radley, and Blanche. I guess it's the tag team. So y'all come on up. We'll get started with the direction for the CRA.
Good evening. I'm Bobby Howell, the planning manager, also the interim executive development or community development interim executive director for the CRA. Tongue twister. All right, can you hear me? Is that good?
Yeah. Speak
Okay.
up.
All right. Okay, so we're here this evening to discuss House Bill 991 and Senate Bill 1242. These bills have been filed in the state legislature. What these bills propose to do is to limit the powers of CRAs. If this bill becomes law, CRAs will no longer be able to initiate new projects after October 1st, 2025. Based on this, a list of projects that has been proposed would need to be budgeted prior to October 1st, 2025, in the event this bill becomes law. Earlier this afternoon, we had sent out an amended version of the bill. Apparently that has been on pause in the legislature, so that the original bill that was included in your packet is the one going forward. Based on this, there's a list of projects that are proposed to kind of close out the CRA if this bill does become law. The first one would be completion of the downtown Apopka Trail to Alabama Avenue. The trail is under construction currently, but this would be the finalization of the trail. An additional would be the Central Avenue portion of the trail, the Apopka Trail. City Hall Park, which the previous director, I believe, had proposed before the CRA, a little pocket park outside of City Hall here. Finalization of that. Action Sports Park upgrades. That's the pump track, skate park and pump track. There'd be upgrades to that. Alonzo Williams Park amenity upgrades. Edwards Field amenity upgrades. Signal and pedestrian upgrades at 5th and Central Avenue. Property acquisition, expansion of Alonzo Williams Park. This is property that's owned by Quest Foundation. Expansion of Kit Nelson Park. There's a property that the city has sent a letter to the owner. We've not received any information back to date from that owner, inquiring if they would be interested in selling the property for the expansion of Kitland Nelson Park. Gas lamps on 5th Street, and then the 8th Street plat, the pocket park with the 0.82 acre and the 4 lots. So I'll kind of go through some of the projects here. That's the overview. This is the trail map. As you can see, the purple on the map is the completion over to Alabama, and the blue is on Central Avenue. This is the outside area where the pocket park would be, the City Hall pocket park next to the baked goods shop. It'd be a proposal for some benches and seating area out there. This is the slide for the upgrade to the Apopka Action Sports Park, also known as the Pump Track. It would include ADA parking spaces, sidewalk, a pavilion, some water fountains, and Mr. Williams can kind of touch on some of those upgrades a little bit more in detail. This is at Alonzo Williams Park. Rebuild the basketball courts, include a new 20 by 28 pavilion there as well, and help beautify that park. It's a very nice park. This is possible acquisition for future Alonzo Williams Park expansion that you see in the orange. It's property that the city has approached Quest about, sent a letter to them to inquire if there's any interest in selling the property to the city. This is for the Edwards Field upgrades, renovated open field with improved irrigation, some basketball courts, some pickleball courts, And then the potential property acquisition that I had referenced earlier, which is this piece right here. We've approached the property owner with a letter. We've not received anything to date from the property owner. This is the signage and pavement marking plan for the crosswalk and the pedestrian upgrades and signalization upgrades at 5th and Park, right outside here. It is kind of a hairy walk if you try and walk across that street. There are no crosswalks there. This would include signalization where you press a button and walk, and then there's mast arms that would be proposed for signalization there at the intersection. And then this is the area of the 8th Street replat. This is the property in question here. This was brought up at the last CRA meeting in February, the community workshop, but it was asked to be brought forward tonight for a up or down vote on that one as well. And that's the plat. So with that, this is more or less a discussion to gauge any input from the CRA board as projects they would like to see going forward. And we will solicit any discussion and input and provide direction to staff to go forward.
All right. Let's start down there. How about that? Yes, you remember?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In reading the bill, the initial bill that was given to us, what I don't see in the bill is if some of these projects are appropriated, considering that it may take longer than September 30th, 2025 to complete, is there any indication from the state that the CRA can remain in existence?
Well, we just happen to have the FRA attorney of record, so he can answer it. And why don't we do that first? If we got any questions about the actual legislation, the reason we're here, obviously Cliff Shepard represents everybody in Tallahassee on CRA. So.
When it comes to CRAs, yes, sir. So the answer is very unclear. The bill that I sent you, the amendment that I sent you, which I had gotten on the 14th, as today's the 16th, was what I was told was going to go before committee yesterday. And as you can, well, you probably don't know, the mayor knows because I was able to tell him just before the meeting, it got pulled temporarily. And there's a general disagreement amongst the House and the Senate as to what bill they want to see or what amendments they want to see. I would say to you that for today's purposes, you should plan as if you're not going to get to go any more past this year, because that's the most conservative view. I think that at the end of the day, they will find a way to allow CRAs to continue to exist, but with some tighter reins. What those reins will look like could be anything from penalizing those CRAs, many of whom are in South Florida, who continue to violate the rules of spending. They act like those rules don't exist, and they treat CRAs like personal piggy banks, and this is how we get to this position. So that's problem number one. That's been suggested by the FRA as a solution. Another one has been to tighten with very clear definition, with no wiggle room, what you can and can't spend money on. I spend an inordinate amount of time explaining to people, no, you can't spend money on marketing. Yes, that is prohibited. You can't do it, and they still don't believe me, because commonsensically they think, if we've got a CRA, wouldn't we want to promote it? Yeah, but this is not about the common sense. This is about what the law says you can and can't do. We've proposed penalizing the CRAs, for example, that continue to violate the rules, including and up to the potential for having their ability to be a CRA taken away all at once. So instead of being like a third grader where the teacher punishes the whole class for one kid talking, you just punish the people who were actually talking in class. Don't know if any of those things are going to get traction, but the amendment that you have seen but has been paused would essentially allow CRAs to continue to operate the way they are today, with one major exception. All CRAs would come to an end in 2045, no matter when their deadline is. If it's past that, they would end then. The only exception being if they had ongoing debt obligations to be funded through CRA revenues, they can't interfere with those bond covenants. But short of that, for example, if our CRA ended in 2050, it would not. It would end in 2045. Ours happens to end earlier, but that's the way it would work. What they proposed, the amendment, for those that don't know, is they proposed that a new project, meaning one that's put in existence and funded after this year could be done if it was fully paid off by the termination date of the CRA or 2045, which is ever is earlier. And so that one we could live with, I think, generally speaking, but then they pulled it. So I don't know where we're headed. So right now, if you're planning, I think this list is great because you cannot move fast enough to keep up with the changing mind of the legislature. So if you could get these projects underway sooner rather than later, that's what I would do.
All right, so that begs the other question. As you know, counselor, some of these projects run into problems,
Mhm.
requires change orders, time delays, those types of things. So the other question would become, given whatever the termination date is of the CRA, would the CRA be able to fund cost overruns, budget adjustments, changes in scopes of services? Because as everybody knows, you run into a problem in the field and it requires an engineer to redo something. So that requires a change in scope of services. So do you foresee, if the CRA remained in existence, that we would be capable of making those changes?
The answer is you would be capable of making those changes, but it would be coming out of the obligations of the general fund because you would no longer have TIF coming in, meaning you wouldn't get those rebates from the county that we now spend on these things. So yes, it's possible. The more conservative approach, if that's what you're interested in, is to make sure that you build in a significant contingency in the budget so you have the ability to deal with those overruns from TIF and within the time frame of your CRA. But yes, there wouldn't be a situation in which you've got a contractor out there, the job's not complete, and you can't pay him because you can. You just have to ship the obligation to the city's general fund. So that needs to be in your kind of calculus of what you're approving.
I did notice in the bill, though, that as far as the debt service is concerned, the legislature allowed the CRA to remain in existence. I believe that was the terminology, in order to pay off the debt.
Correct.
But it begs the question is, I mean, if the debt is already, if the debt's already obligated, unless the CRA is required to meet in order to approve the debt service payment, which I kind of doubt, I kind of have trouble understanding why the legislature would allow the CRA to remain in existence relative to debt service, but not for projects.
Because it's a constitutional prohibition against interfering with bond covenants. It's the same problem if you want to use a more recent historical example of what happened when the legislature in its wisdom thought they could pull the rug out from under Disney, and Disney had over $1 billion in bond commitments. It's unconstitutional, and in the case of Disney, they had specific legislation that said they would never do that. So they had to go back and rewrite it so they could not, and would not interfere with the ability of Disney to pay its bond debt. That's the reason.
Would you make the assumption that if the CRA were to terminate, we would still be required to conduct an annual audit?
That would be up to them, but that's still in the statute. So unless it comes out, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Member Nesta?
So I was reviewing a lot of the projects that we've done, what we're looking at potentially doing moving forward. What's our end date for the CRA as it currently stands, or our termination date?
Oh, is it 2037?
Years from last year, so we have a 3-year trial, and I think in 2035.
Yeah, we have a
2030.
sort of a 3-year lease, if you will, from the county who's looking to see results to continue us further. If we had asked for 10, they gave us 3. I think if they give us to our maximum, it's like 2035.
So are they allowed to, should this go into effect, allowed to extend us then?
Yes, they are allowed to extend us because the cutoff would be 2045.
Okay. So they're allowed to extend it. Because in here, the bill removes the current law option for a local government to vote to extend a subordinate CRA's expiration date.
Yeah, we did that, but we're in a charter county, so it's got to be approved by the county.
Okay, so that's not okay. Understood on that front then. So as all of our projects are done by 2035, effectively, we don't run into an issue.
Yes,
Of having to dip into general fund.
and if we are allowed to keep on funding projects after October of this year, that's the big be all end all. If they pull that out and replace it with something like what I've discussed, penalties for actual offenders as opposed to everybody who's doing it right, uh, clarifying what you can and can't spend the money on, those kinds of things, then we should be okay. Our issue has been not doing more projects, not doing the wrong projects.
Understood. So basically, they need to be earmarked and the funding allocated by October 1st, effectively.
Under the current
Should nothing
scenario,
change?
worst case, yes.
Okay. So if that's the case, then, and let's say some of these projects don't come to fruition, like some of these land acquisition, pick any one of them. If they don't come to fruition for one reason or another, that allocated funds, can we move that then to another project? Like reallocate it to a project that's already on our list?
This year,
Right. Okay.
not after this year, and
So-
not after October. If again, depending on if the worst case scenario comes that they've planned, only if it happens. Like if we found out, let's say I'm pulling one off the list without I don't know anything about it, the Edwards Field amenity upgrades. We define, well, we can't do that one, and we're in September. Okay, we want to move it to the 5th Street gas lamps. We're still in this year. We still are in this year's budget. We make a budget amendment. It's in our plan. We're golden. But if it's October 2, under the worst case, no.
We can't move any money at all then?
No.
So we just lose it?
You return it to the county.
Sure. Okay. So we need to be very specific on the budgeting for the project and ensure that we can actually accomplish that project as well.
And that it's yes, correct. That's a good way, shorthand way of saying it, yes.
And the reason we put these projects together, we wanted to make sure that we could meet them. Like we've got the planning for some of the rest of the trail, but if we can't get past the planning, then it doesn't.
No. And the ultimate issue here, I know county ears are here, and I simply would say nobody wants to turn money back to the county if you can help it. But you may have to if the bill goes through in its worst case and we haven't allocated the money to spend on projects.
Okay. Okay. Those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you so much.
Member Smith?
So for instance, the facade assistance grant program that we have in place, and there's money that's allocated for those particular projects. So does that money have to be spent by October 1st as well, or
If
can
you
it
have-
still be?
You're talking about a facade grant?
Yes.
It has to have been applied for in this year, budgeted for in this year, and be ready to be spent on a project. It doesn't have to be finished. The project doesn't have to be finished if it's initiated. But like if someone comes in November wanting to apply under the worst case scenario, which is what we're currently looking at, there is no more plan. There's nothing to apply for
So
because it would be a new project.
so the money that we currently have budgeted can remain, but they need to apply to use those funds prior to.
And we have to say yes.
And we have
It
to
can't
say
be
yes.
just, well, we filed an application. It has to be an approved project for which we have budgeted funds in this year prior to October 1st of 2025.
All right. And do we have the ability to add programs to this list?
Absolutely, as long as you can get it done and get them budgeted this year.
All right.
I mean, and by this year, I mean this fiscal year.
Okay.
Okay. Member Velasquez?
Okay. So I saw this list, but I don't see a dollar amount for any of these
It
that
is.
are on the list.
Stuff under they sit down. It's on there on the agenda. Go back.
Go back.
Get out of there.
Wait a minute. Oh, here it
The
is.
budget,
I'm
the
sorry.
allocations there. Mhm.
Oh my God, I can't see these things. So the question is, can we add more to this? And we have obviously have the public that's going to come up and give us some suggestions of where they think some of the dollars should be spent. We can continue to add to this list.
As long as you can get it funded from what you have.
Okay. So where do we determine if we add to this list, then we have to readjust how we're allocating the funds?
That would require
That's
your
what we-
meetings and budget amendments
That's
and
what we're
those
doing
things.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is get a baseline to start with. We
Right.
want to, and we've asked the staff to come out with at least as much as we've got to spend. We can add more to it, realizing we can adjust downward, or we can. I mean, quite honestly, if we want to go to general funds, you want to come down, Blaine? I mean, but we just want to make, like the properties, if we can't get them purchased, by then or a contract, then we've got that money would either go back to the county or we have to spend it on another project. So yeah, we're just trying to give everybody. We were just come up with options of, when Bobby and Radley and I and Blanche sat down, we're just trying to come up with projects that we could get done in the appropriate time, so that we can spend it, and not lose it. So
So the CRA budget is the 4,471,29. If you want to exceed that amount, then you're going to have to come up with a transfer from the general fund, because those are the only funds that are in this budget. We have to maintain a balanced budget.
So you're saying the projects that are listed consumes all of the budget?
And plus the
Consumes
additional,
what we
plus,
have right now
so
in
that's
the
why we
budget.
need to prioritize. Yes.
So
The list that you have before you, it exceeds that 4,471,29.
So if we add to it, then that means we need to either eliminate something that's already there or take funds from the
That's what we're
general
discussing
budget.
right now.
Correct.
And the reason why I ask is because number 7, the signal and pedestrian upgrades for 5th and Central.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Okay. I thought he said park earlier in Central.
both.
Both.
Yes. Should be a City Hall Park, number 3. But and just to give you everybody
not
kind of
I was talking about the signal.
right. Well,
Okay.
and just to kind of give you a reference point in how we got to where we are. So, take number 7, signal and pedestrian upgrades, 5th and Central. Well, we wanted to do one at now, we've got this. This should have been park. But what we wanted to do was do also a signal and pedestrian upgrade at 5th and Central. But because we can't get it planned and get it an RFP and get it under contract, we couldn't put that on there. I mean, that would make perfect sense, because when we get the housing complex built on the west side of Central, it made perfect sense to have both pedestrian crossings, one at Park and one at Central. But we could plan it, but we can't build it.
Right.
Can't get a contract to build it between now and then. So what between Blanche and Radley and Bobby and I, what we try to do is back into the dates that we could actually perform to get, make sure that we met that those deadlines. And so a lot of these projects where you're having to plan and then build or get a contract, we can't do it fast enough.
Not enough time.
Yeah. So it does really kind of hamstring you, and that, as soon as we found out this bill was going, we started meeting. We met 3 or 4 times, the 4 of us, just to try to figure out, and listen, we just came out, this was our best, ideas, and we definitely are not, I don't think any of us are married to any of them, but we just want to make sure that we've got proposals down here that we can exceed that number. And and then if we need to adjust downward, that will be easier than, we can't adjust upward because October 1st is
Right.
gone.
And if listen, I'll be the first to let you know if I get any firm ideas about what's going to happen, because it changes literally daily. I get updates from our lobbyist, FRA's lobbyist, daily. I got one on the way here, which is to tell me that the amendment that I had sent out to you guys had been postponed, and that essentially the House is on one page, the Senate's on another page, and we're not sure where they'll actually end up. So if it changes, and I'm cautiously optimistic that will change in a way that will make this less of a fire sale, but I am also of the opinion that regardless, because that's just for this session, who knows what will happen next session. If you like these projects or some of these projects, the sooner you get them funded and get them built, get them started on building, the more likely you are to be safe. So it's kind of a good opportunity to do the Chinese fire drill or whatever they call it when you run around the car at a stoplight and make the thing happen, because if this is the impetus we needed, okay, so be it.
And the reason why I ask is because we definitely,
So-
well, I feel we need that one at 5th and Central as well. But you're saying it's impossible to get it done.
we could plan it. We could probably get. I think we figured out we could do the planning. Which, if we want to do planning, and then hope next year that the CRA doesn't go away, then yes, we can do the
So,
planning. We just
so let me just, I think it's really important that we move forward with assuming that the bill's going to pass
correct.
Yes.
with the most
Correct.
conservative. So with that being said, I think it's important that we kind of focus on what's proposed and what the change is going to be. So I guess, because I don't have any questions for you, attorney. I kind of understand
Okay.
the bill. So we're going to start discussing.
Yeah, yeah. Then we'll go back.
Okay.
Member Williams, I know you got here just a little late. We obviously our city attorney was talking. He represents FRA, and so I don't know if you have any attorney questions about the bill itself. But then we'll roll right into the projects, and then questions or concerns, and then we'll open up to the public. The summary was helpful. Okay, good. Okay, you betcha. All right, so I guess probably it'd be Radley and Bobby as far as the projects. Y'all want to come up, and then why don't we just go down the list?
We also have the county commissioner
Huh?
here.
Right.
She has a presentation also. Oh, okay.
Okay. So, why don't we just go down the list? Start with number one. The what is?
Before we take a deep dive in those, the proposal is to remove a lot of things as well. So wayfinding signage, building code assistance program, facade renovation assistance program, building permit refund assistance program, all of those are being removed, correct?
Yes. So
Some of these things are already obligated at the top. They've already been encumbered. We're looking at more or less that purple and green colors on it. So like the 85,000 for the community police.
Sure.
Yeah, some of that. Yeah, just keep that in mind. Some of
So
is
that we're
already
keeping correct, but those other ones, so the building permit refund assistance program, that's being removed.
Yeah.
The residential fee assistance program, so stuff that would assist to keep development going
yeah. So
and help homeowners
right. So this
and
is
business owners.
right.
That's why I was telling them to go through it, and then of course I have some things I want to propose. So.
Yes, this is a list that we come up with, but I mean, like we were talking about earlier, this is really just kind of up for discussion. So whatever you guys want to put in here, it's really your meeting.
Okay. And I just want to say, as we go through this, obviously the impact, we want to do as much, bring these dollars as far as we can, but at the same time, the CRA is to benefit our community as well. So we want to make sure we're not removing that from the residents' access to these funds either. So please go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, that was the question I asked.
Yeah.
Before. All right, go ahead.
Which question? I'm sorry.
About were we going to take away the facade grant program, the grant system program, if it was already budgeted?
Yeah,
Well,
that's what
it's not. The money is there, but if somebody doesn't apply for it, then it goes away. So that's the problem. Is you can't have a pot of money.
So I guess
out
we
there.
just go straight into it then. So I guess without you guys doing your presentation. So one of the things that is alarming to me is that the residential renovation assistance program has been around since 2017. And through my research, we have only given out $1,000 to that program. And speaking with staff, we have done no community outreach. And to say the least, we have failed our residents in that regard. So I see in here that we only allocated $10,000 initially in the first budget for 2025, and then we took the $10,000 away just now. So I'm proposing that we increase that amount from $10,000 to $250,000, and that we do right by the residents and make sure that we are utilizing these funds what it's used for. We have not since 2017 gave the community an opportunity to participate. If you look at some of these properties, they need new roofs. There's a lot of structural issues going on with these properties. A lot of these properties need to be renovated, and we have not done anything to assist the residents. So I think it's important that when we are planning this, that we make sure that the 459 residents that has been identified in the CRA area, that we do right by them, we make it right, and make sure we at least allocate $250,000 to these residents, so that way they can participate in the program. In addition to that, the program outlines $1,000. As we know, You really can't renovate anything with $1,000. Not really sure how we came up with that number back in 2017, but we know that we probably need to do some modifications to that program. I think there's a lot of residents here that can utilize the program. There's a lot of senior citizens homes that a lot of them don't have any access to ramps that they need to get in their home. So I think it's very, very important that looking at this budget, that we find $250,000 at the minimum that we put into this program. And I'm pretty sure that we can fund this program. There are a lot of residents already now to sign up for this program, but I think it's important. That's one of the things that I want to make sure that we do is make sure that we do right by the citizens now. Because since 2017, we failed our residents.
Which specific program is that?
This is the Residential Renovation Assistance Program.
Okay.
It's been around since 2017.
And Bobby, tell us what that entails for the residential side.
Yeah. Let me grab my.
Just so everybody.
Okay, so what that entails, it's for single family and multifamily renovations. May include SEPTED review, which is crime prevention through environmental design, paint, lighting, windows, doors, energy efficient, gutters, house numbers, etc. And all, the max that it allows is $1,000, and that's what it does.
And to be clear, that's the program that we put together in the city, right? That's something that we put together. That was our program.
It was part of the CRA.
CRA,
yes,
okay.
ma'am. Uh-huh.
And we can't amend that program. Is that accurate?
It was budgeted from last year's budget, yeah. So, I mean, if you want to. Yeah, as I understand it, you could take one of the projects that's listed and then cut that one and add more to this one if you so wish.
Okay. So, Attorney, there wouldn't be
Yes.
any issues of amending the program, correct?
Yeah, as long you can amend your budget and move money that was allocated from one plan to another plan, as long as you do it timely under the current worst case
No,
scenario.
I understand that. I'm saying the current program that we have in place now, we can amend that program.
Yeah, you could up
Okay.
the limits if that's what you're asking.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
And we just need to make
only-
sure then that residents they just have to have their application and approved prior to October 1.
Application in and approved before October 1. Under worst case scenario, that would way they could get, we could use the money and it would have been budgeted and we'd have an approved project and it'd be going forward.
And
Yes.
more importantly, we need to update the program to not only increase the $1,000, but also increase the scope of things that residents can actually have completed.
And that would be the pleasure of the board to
And
make that.
Cliff, are there any restrictions?
Yes.
Okay.
The reason we talk about facade grants is because the general purpose for these grants is to make the appearance of whatever it is, whether it's buildings that are run down where businesses used to be. If you think about Winter Garden, what it is today versus what it was, 20 years ago, or whatever. So it's more attractive for people to come and walk the streets and patronize the business and so forth. So it's not really about necessarily fixing up houses unless those houses are in an area where people will walk down the streets and pass them by and so forth. But having that been said, where I know the line is drawn is like people have asked, well, we need new HVAC. That's an interior improvement. So could I see stretching it to say, well, this house is in this area and it also attracts business and it needs a new roof? Maybe. But once you go to inside, like I've in Fort Myers, they wanted to approve a cooking hood inside a building that needed one, but no, that's an interior improvement. So again, the idea is to make it where people going in that area will A, feel safe, community policing, B, feel like it's well lit, so you can have lighting and wide sidewalks, better streets, parking, and so forth, drainage, and it looks inviting. That's kind of the general idea of facade grants. There are other kinds of grants too. I don't know that you have them, but other cities have grants to, if they want to do affordable housing, they have grants that they will put out for that. I don't know that you all have that or have the time. to
Well,
do
this
that.
one's a little bit different. The one that Member Anderson is referencing is not the facade one. It's a kind of a renovation. It's a more general assistance program. So it's not specific to facades. And it's my understanding, too, that kind of the basis of a CRA, the success level of it is increased property values.
Correct.
Is the base level of a successful. So I would pretty confidently state that an air conditioner, a hood in a property does increase property values, which then does increase taxable values.
I wouldn't be there right there with you and holding hands as the legislature shot us both. They have very strong ideas about how the money's supposed to be spent. And if it's not in the statute, they don't want you spending it, which is why we're in the position we're in now. It's 163, 370 and 163, 387. Both of those, 387 sets forth 9 areas where you can spend money. And the last one is anything required to utilize the powers given to a CRA under 163, 370. And there's a bunch of those, but they're also very specific. For example, you can use money from TIF to clear a property that's going to be used to be built by a commercial to do something ever you want to. So you can actually do the site clearing for them. Or provide money for them for site clearing. You can use money for, I've already mentioned community policing. Affordable housing is on the list. Facade grants, or basically ways to get properties that are in code enforcement issues fixed. So to the point of Commissioner Anderson or Member Anderson, if what we're talking about is code violations, there's a potential way to use the money to or many of those things. Because I think it says forced or required or voluntary compliance with code, something like that is the language. So, but you have to be able to point to something specific in the statute to justify the expenditure. And this is important because every year, somebody asked me, are we still going to be audited? Yes. And every year the auditor has to certify compliance of the CRA with 163,370 and 163,387. And they can't certify it if you're spending money outside what the statute requires you to spend it on.
So the statute is vague because
It has some parts that are very specific and some parts that have a little room for wiggle room that are being brutally taken advantage of in certain parts of our state.
okay.
Which is why we are having this issue with the legislature.
So I think it's important when we're actually updating this and extending it that we just consult with you to make sure that we're putting things in that comply with the statute. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Thank you.
Member Williams, you got?
Does anybody have it? I mean, what are the members' thoughts in regards to the $250,000? Did anybody?
Okay.
From what area were you taking the $250,000 from? Is my question.
Let's see.
I mean, I have no problem with that. I think that's a great idea that we are going to use the money to allow the residents to benefit from it. I was just wondering where you took it from. And then since we have to have it approved by October 1st, then we need to have a cutoff date for those residents so that if they have not applied for and it's been spent, that then we still have time to spend it someplace else.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll definitely have to have but the problem is when you get down to September, we're going to be up against the wall.
I think we just executed. We put it in place. We executed, give them 2 weeks to get it in, and then from there
Okay.
I'm pretty sure if we tell the residents that they're able to get a new roof, they can get their house painted. I'm pretty sure they'll be lined up at City Hall for it.
Okay. And because the thing is, like the property at Alonzo Williams, the Quest property, which I've had one conversation with the folks at Quest. He was receptive. We haven't had any response from Kitland, Nelson, that corner lot. And there's also the property, I guess it's in probate now, that's next to our parking lot on Washington that had a real estate sign on. I know Bobby's reached out to them and we haven't heard back, but that would be another, as far as just property purchases, would be something we could, but it might not happen. So we might have more than, my thought is we just put the 250 in there and just be out of whack. How much are we out of whack, Blanche? Okay. So we're out. Okay.
So
what's the
for
total amount of
example,
funds that we need to allocate? Like, what's that gross pool of funds? And then we can go through and start.
So
allocating
I'm gonna give you an
that.
example. So we have the Edwardsville pickleball court. That's $150,000. We have $305,000 for fencing, sod, and beautification of the park. So there are money go right there.
Right.
Yeah, but the current budget is the $4,471,029. The list totals $4,869,039.
So 4.471 is what needs to be
To maintain a
earmarked.
balanced budget.
What's left over right now that needs to be allocated? out of that 4.4, what has not been assigned to something?
We're over.
We already signed it. It's
We're
on the
over.
it's
We're
on the
over.
budget. It's there, they have it there. It's listed.
None of this is assigned though. These are just, I'm saying what?
No, it's all assigned.
It's
They allocated. They
No, because
reallocated,
stuff has been removed
and they
from
added
those
it back.
programs that you're discussing.
But if you look to the left on the green, they reallocated the funds. They already done it.
Do you want to know what's been committed out of the 4,471,000?
Correct.
Okay, so everything that is not shaded, like the 85,000 for the police, community police, 6,000 for the CRA audit, 951 for the FRA, the 27,325 for that program FRAP. Those little small amounts, the 175 and the 995 and the 5909. So the things that are in the green highlight, and those are the ones you need to look at.
But we've removed $400,000 worth of
Other from the other programs.
from the
yeah.
other program that Commissioner Anderson that you were referencing. We removed, was that not 300,000, 10,000 from that one program. So that was removed, and there's no money in that fund right now.
Mm.
Is
Yes.
what this is saying.
Yes.
Which I don't want. That's what I want to make sure is what's that total number? How many? What does everything in the green add up to? Is it that 2.4 million that's on the bottom of that, or is that just the trail itself?
Yeah,
That's just the trail.
that's just the trail. That's just a breakdown of the trail in the various phases and stuff like that. I'd have to total that up and
So
get
is-
that for you. I definitely can't do it off the top of my head.
Okay. So I was just my point of asking that is it makes it easier to, instead of okay, well, what are we going to remove it from? Let's just start with our total funds that are available to allocate, and then start slowly going down and saying, okay, 250 for that program, great, done. Let's move on and hit the next program, because none of those programs are being funded at this point, and that's my concern. Is I don't want to miss any of those.
Just a quick question. So does the presentation outline everything and the amounts and what's available and what's not and what's been moved and what hasn't?
Yeah.
Because I think it would be at least helpful for me
The
to make
spreadsheet.
sure we're
It's on
all
the
on
spreadsheet.
the same
It's-
page.
It's
Just
here.
for
in your
them to-
staff report.
Yeah, but I didn't know in the presentation, I don't know if we would be more efficient to listen to the presentation and then have the discussion, or
No, I think it was just efficient to do it that because the presentation is kind of what they came up with. I think it's important that that with in mind, this is something that we want to do. So when we're looking at presentation, we can decide then what we want to remove from the presentation. So I thought it would be important for us to talk about the
Sure.
So I think it was more efficient
just
to do
making
it
sure
that
I
way.
understood the order of everything.
So, and I'm just jotting down numbers as you talk about
Okay.
it. Okay, so we can see where we are.
Members of the council, I want to just quickly say to you, I don't have the addresses for you, ma'am, or you on the end. I apologize for that. But I did email to the council, whose addresses I do have, a memo that sets forth, why you can't spend money on marketing and special events, but it does specifically, and this is why I sent it to you, tell you what you can spend money on. So you have it as a reference. I don't know if you're able to get your emails up there, but if you want to see all the things you can spend money on, it's in the memo I just sent you. And I'm sure Mrs. Bone, who I copied, can get a copy to the members that I don't have their email address for.
You just sent it to us. Okay,
Oh,
here it
there
is.
it goes. Perfect. Thank you.
So we got to get. How do we? Susan, can you see here? Where can we print? Can we get the members? Either can you email it now to Member Williams and Member Drago, or so they can take a look at it?
Well, with this new information too, and so that we can digest it properly and have resident input that digest this as well, should we set up another meeting next week or early part of next week to really take an even deeper dive into this to make sure that, number one, we're staying within the law, and number two, it's actually benefiting all of our residents? Because I don't want to make just rash decisions now if we're going to have to adjust it anyways.
Well, I think
I
we're
think
going to probably have to make an adjustment anyway when we get, like the property sales or whatever. There's some things in there that we're not sure that we're going to be able to accomplish. So I think,
Which ones do you not think you're going to be able to accomplish?
well, the property sale. I mean, I don't know.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, sure.
I think in order to hopefully make an intelligent decision, I don't think we have all the facts. So here's what's missing. What's missing is a comparison of what the current budget is and all the line items associated with it and a dollar figure, and a suggested budget relative to the criteria that the attorney laid out is that whatever new projects you budget between now and September 30th has to be completed by September 30th. So it shouldn't be hard for the mayor, the chair, the staff,
Have to
the
be funded
finance
by completion.
director to get together, come up with those two documents. And I think from there,
That's
we can make a more intelligent decision. The public will get to see projects that are more focused relative to the time frame in which it has to be completed. And then if for some reason the state doesn't pass the bill, well, then we live for another year and we deal with it during the new budget cycle.
right. Well, that's the new project listed in green.
But some of those projects can't be completed by September 30th,
No,
2025.
that's all we wanted. That's the projects that we all came up with. The four of us thought those were all, other than the property sales, everything on that in the green list we can accomplish before the end of, or have it under contract before the end of the fiscal year.
Well, if I hear the attorney right, under contract is one criteria, getting it finished is a different criteria.
Yeah, and you don't have to have it finished, but you do have to have it approved and budgeted for in this fiscal year. So if it starts construction in November, that's not a problem, or even December or beyond, but we have to be under contract with a contractor if it's a bigger project, or if it's a grant, for example, a facade grant, we have to approve the application and budgeted the money before October 1st. Again, if the bill in its current form, which is the worst case scenario, passes.
All right. So what I heard you also say that if it can't be completed and the state says that's to be terminated, then does the funds in the CRA have to be transferred to the general fund in order to pay the obligation?
No, the funds in the CRA never get transferred to the general fund. They get transferred back to the county, who
Okay.
then can redistribute a portion of them back to the city. That's the catch-22. We get in our TIF not only our money, but we get a portion, a 95% of a portion of the funds that would otherwise go to the county to spend in other parts of the county. That's the advantage of a CRA. So you get dollars you wouldn't ordinarily get, but those dollars are restricted on what they can be spent, and that's what the memo tells you in terms of where you can spend them. They're designed for essentially bricks and mortar kinds of improvements in the redevelopment area. So things like stormwater drainage, street lighting, community policing, affordable housing, and other things that are spelled out here. There's a fairly long list: clearing foundations, acquiring property that you want to have redeveloped. You can spend money to acquire the property. You can't use eminent domain, but if someone will sell you a piece of property that you want in the redevelopment area because you want it to turn into some sort of a other project, then you can use your money to buy that. So those are just some. It's a fairly long list, but it's also very specific.
Well, I want to say it's as clear as mud.
And that is why people abuse it.
Agreed.
Yes.
Okay, but I still think the issue is this rob Peter to pay Paul in the budget relative to I'm going to take so much out of here to cover this. I think, I would hope for the edification of the board and the public, that document should show us where this money is going to be reassigned in order to come up with a budget of $4,471,029. And my understanding is that that's the total amount of revenue that is anticipated for this fiscal year relative to the expenses assigned to the revenue. Now, if that's accurate, then that new list should show that expenditure of $4,471,029 without going to the general fund and borrowing money or securing a loan or whatever. I don't think that's a good idea financially to do that. The only problem I have is the projects and a time frame in which to get it completed. That's the only problem I see in this scenario, given the assumption that that House bill would, I mean, that bill, the House bill and the Senate bill would pass. And I think we have to take that into consideration relative to the projects we assign and the time frame associated with it.
Well, I guess my thought is back to Member Anderson is if we want to, do we need Cliff? Do we need to up under the residential
Renovation assistance.
renovation? Do we need to change the policy to reflect? I mean, because we're never going to get there with the $1,000.
Well, it sounds like two things need to happen.
Right.
Number one, you would need to change the
Correct.
terms of your grant program
Correct.
to increase the limit
Yes.
and perhaps what it can be spent on. I've
Yes.
never read it, so I don't know what it allows you to spend money on, and make
Correct.
sure it complies with Florida law.
Right.
But then the other thing is you need a budgeted transfer, as opposed to you're not increasing or decreasing, but you're moving. So you need a essentially, I think Blanche can tell you, but I think it's like a transfer minute. So you say, we're going to decrease this column and add to this column by whatever the
Right.
amount.
Right.
Kind of what we're doing with the other projects now.
So is that something we can at least start that process tonight to make sure this is,
Sure.
that specific part is funded? So
Well, I would assume all you need to do is instruct staff. That's what you want to do.
okay.
Yeah.
Because the more time we have for that, especially for residents to get applications in, the better,
Mhm.
and to market it as well to make sure they know about it.
So Bobby, why don't you come back up and talk the residential improvement? What is that? I know it's $1,000. What, Member Anderson? What do you want to? You were talking about
Well,
5,000.
So I'm thinking just based off an attorney. So what are some of the other things that you've seen that the law would allow us to utilize? Roof. I think we can add a roof to the roofing to there as well. I think it should.
Well, going back to the memo, I found the one that I was talking about, and it said either something like a forced or a mandatory or a voluntary program of building rehabilitation. That's a fairly broad one. Many of them are very specific. So what does that mean? Well, it's been interpreted in other places when you say rehabilitation to mean code enforcement. So you got broken windows, you can bring them up to code by fixing the windows. I assume that a roof that leaks would be a problem potentially. So maybe that's an issue. In one of the cities where they do this, they contract with, and I'm not saying we have time to do this, but they contract with, as a contractor, Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity identifies these places, businesses and or homes that are in the CRA that have code violations. They make a plan to fix the violations. They come up with a budget to fix them, and then they come back to the CRA to pay the bill for them as the CRA's contractor. So that's one way it's done. Basically, it depends on the manpower that you have as a city to oversee these things, because it's not just as simple as, well, we got a grant, we're going to give away money, because somebody's got to watch it. Somebody's got to see, okay, was it spent on the roof? Was it spent on this?
Mm-hmm.
What typically happens, and this is where you get crazy, in grant programs, in different circumstances, you have the party out there who doesn't have the money to get the stuff done. But the way grants are supposed to work is you do the work and get reimbursed. If they had the money to do the work, it's kind of a catch-22. But that's the way grants typically work. You do the work, you bring the receipts, therefore we can see the work, and then here you get the money. What you're talking about is we want to give them the money to do the work, which means you now have to have somebody to monitor that the work is actually done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a handful.
So I know we kind of talked about that. Radley, you want to come up? We kind of talked about kind of what this looks like, because that's something that we, in my agenda review, we were just kind of brainstorming some stuff. What are some of the things we could outsource a contractor to kind of come in and kind of help facilitate this?
Well, we do in the council meeting coming forward is a general contractor solicitation bid and award. Possibly that's something we could explore, utilizing those contractors for something like that. But we'd have to explore that more with Cliff, definitely, to make sure both sides it's an appropriate use of that contract.
So I do remember when we were helping some of the businesses along 441, that there was a requirement that they had to bring 3 quotes. Is that still a requirement?
Well,
Is that a requirement for the residential renovation assistance program?
It's a requirement for all the programs. Yeah, three
So,
quotes.
because when we did the extension, the CRA redevelopment extension, and you have a listing here of the Apopka CRA assistance programs. The residential renovation assistant program works in conjunction with owners and volunteer groups to support exterior renovation of existing single family homes, owner occupied, covers supplies such as paint, paintbrushes, rollers, handles, cork, tarpons, painter's tape, house lights, rain gutters, house numbers, energy efficient replacement windows and doors, etc. And that's where member Anderson is saying you had up to $1,000. We want to be able to
Yeah.
amend that
Mhm.
to a higher amount.
Right. She wants the budget. I think
And
it was
there's no
250.
match, but
Mhm.
that resident still has to bring 3 quotes.
That's the way the programs work. You guys could change that if you want. $1,000, I think it goes 2017. So obviously the cost of materials and stuff has gone up exponentially since 2017. So $1,000 is a low sum to budget. It's the discretion of the
I mean, I'm
sport.
thinking
But-
we at least need to increase that to 10,000,
10,000.
if not a little bit more,
More.
even 15. Just nothing is affordable right now. So
No,
Right.
it's not.
So,
Yeah.
but can we change the 3 quotes?
If that's
It's
what
yeah,
you
we
choose
wrote
to
the
do.
policy, so we can change it.
Okay.
That's our policy.
Yeah, that's an internal. This
Internal.
we've got to do.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we can
go to
that's
10.
that's one
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
that we have to address.
Hey, you
Because
implement the
that's where
policies,
I
I follow
think-
them.
Yeah,
Becomes
right,
a
right.
problem is the 3 quotes.
Yeah, everybody, you'll get plenty of contractors out there to get you some quotes. That's
Yeah. One of the things I would ask is that, and Commissioner Velasquez, you and I had talked about this, is that I need your help to promote this program through your various social media platforms and your community networks and stuff, because you have a lot more access to people than I do, and it would help
Absolutely.
out a lot.
Well, definitely.
Yes.
You
But
gonna
I think
read
with
the
the
issues.
increase in these, I mean, that's going to change
It's gonna-
people's attractiveness to this, and that's the point. Is let's use these funds; they're there, so let's make sure they're actually impacting our residents the way they should be.
Okay.
So we're looking at 10. We can move it to 10. Now, the one thing we don't have on there is roofs. And Cliff, you're kind of wishy-washy on roofs.
You'll see why there is arguably room for this. And given that if we are thinking the worst case scenario, we might as well go for it. But what it says is this is under 163,370 and it's sub 5, carrying out plans for a program of voluntary or compulsory repair and rehabilitation of buildings and other improvements in accordance with the community redevelopment plan. Obviously, the rules always have to be in the plan and the budget and in the district, so we already know those rules. The one thing that caused me pause is the word buildings as opposed to residences. However, I'm willing to go with the fact that a residence is a building, and someone may argue with me in the state legislature, which is why they have these battles all the time. But again, the thinking of it was they're thinking about generally business areas. But yes, I've seen this used as it is being used in other places for residential repair, particularly where code enforcement is involved. And that's the section I was talking about. And if you've gotten the memo now, you can see there's a whole bunch of other sections, but they're very specific. That one has a little wiggle room. Some have a lot less wiggle room.
Well, if we're going to include roofs in that too, then I mean,
Roof windows.
and that's what I'm saying.
Broken
Well,
windows,
windows, I think,
roofs.
are part of that as well.
Windows are part of it.
At least it was on our.
Well,
last
windows are
policy.
part of a facade, arguably. So.
Yes. So I mean, let's get it up to 20,000. I mean, that at the very least, because again, a roof alone is going to be 10 grand, if not a substantial amount more. Windows, I've been getting quotes on. I mean, again, same thing, 15, 20
15,
grand.
20
So,
grand.
what are you guys thinking on that? I mean, because that
I'll say 20,000.
I think it's a good number, and again, that's gonna attract residents' attention to come in to apply, and it's going to go a long way as well.
Okay.
And it's up to, so they're able to.
Okay. It's still the 50-50 match. Is that?
No, that's for.
I don't think this
says
one
no
has a
match.
match.
Well, that's remember that's our policy, so we can change that policy to no match because that's the policy we came up with.
It has no match.
Because there's no match on there.
There is no match on the one.
Yeah, there's
for
no match.
Okay, for the
2017.
$1,000.
Yeah, that one I don't believe there is a match
There's no
on.
match.
It's some of the others do have a match. Some of these for the businesses downtown, I think it's like 25%. Some of them are like that. But if there's no match but we still require the 3 quotes. And if that's the thing you all want to do away with, then that's fine. We can.
Are we sure we want to make it 100% match? I mean, I'd like to have just a
Well,
little skin in the game. I mean,
well, it's their skin in the game is they're paying property taxes. It's their primary residence. So a lot of them don't even. It's they're on a fixed income. So
And this is going to help
$20
decrease insurance costs as
to
well. I mean,
everything.
this
So
is
I
this
don't
goes
think
a long way.
So I don't think a lot of these residents. I think if they actually had the extra money, I
Yeah,
think
they
they probably
would've
would have
done it,
already
yeah.
done it by now. So I think the issue is that they didn't have the money to do
No
it.
match.
So I don't agree with the match at all. They've already invested it into the property. They purchased the property already or inherit the property. So they've already invested already. So I think the match is when they purchased the property already.
So what I think we should do is one quote. We need to have somebody on staff. Obviously, would it be you that would be running with kind of the management of this?
As of right now, until
Okay.
we hire economic.
So that's
development
perfect. And then up to $20,000 of improvements with no required match is what I would recommend.
we got to have more than one quote. If we're going to spend that kind of money, we can't just. We got to have. Listen, if you can't get 3 quotes, and you got free money.
Well, I don't.
Maybe let's do 2.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm okay with 2, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. 2 quotes.
You do 2 quotes.
Okay.
2 quotes is fine. So that way they're being competitive, you're making them be competitive. So I believe in
Okay.
being competitive, making sure that they're able to get more done for that 20,000. So
Okay,
I'm
so 2
definitely.
quotes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So we got that, and then
Hold on, Ms. Sherman has. Do you have a comment on that?
Make sure I'm picking up the right number. Is this 20,000?
20,000.
20,000.
No.
Each resident. No.
20,000 per applicant.
Per
to
applicant.
250,000 within that pool
Within
of
that-
funds.
Okay.
Mhm.
So we're still at the 250.
Yes, ma'am. For the residential renovation assistance program.
And is the cost is Bobby just managing, or there was some discussion about someone else managing? So
I think they're going to get with the.
if that's the case, that would potentially be a cost that would come from that program or from another part of the budget. How would that be funded?
We'll pro-
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just trying to determine whether or not the management of that, like there's the management of the application piece, then there's the management of the performance of whatever the work is that's being supplied by the grant. So it's Bobby. Is the idea that staff manages both of those, or that there was some mention, I think, of maybe a contractor managing a piece of it, and if so, where does that cost come from? So just trying to understand as a whole how it would work and what it would look like.
As Randy just mentioned before council tonight, we have GC contractors that we plan to award contracts to. And again, we have to see if that has to be just work on city property. Or, because this is non-city property.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even know if we can use those GCs to do this or oversee that, depends on the terms of that contract. Again, so that's not clear right now. But I think how the program has worked in the past, I think Bobby, the CRA person oversaw it.
I mean, it'd be great if we could. I mean, use the contractors we have on. I mean, because obviously, if they want to stay, they want to work with the city, having them.
Well, I think also this is a great opportunity for some of the business owners that currently have businesses here to take advantage of this opportunity too as well. So I think we probably shouldn't just stick to that list. We should open it up to allow them to other businesses to also participate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever we can do to refine this process, make it as efficient as possible, I think is the key here. So that residents can apply, get approved, and get the work starting, especially with rainy season coming up and things of that nature. Getting roofs replaced, windows replaced, it hits on so many levels. It's going to reduce electric bills. It's going to reduce insurance costs. It's going to increase property values. It hits on so many levels.
So I'm thinking that just if we put in probably about another $25,000 in that budget. So from the 250 to the 275, we add $25,000 for a contractor to kind of oversee this, to manage it. But I think the 250 definitely should go to the residents, and we shouldn't take out of that.
And then we'll do a review of the contractors that we're approving tonight, if we're able to implement or use them. Correct?
Yeah, we have to look at the scope and the terms of the contract and see if it's limited to city-owned property.
Okay. And then from there, should that not be, what's that next process? How do we navigate
Well,
forward?
then if it's not, if they can, then if you award the contracts, we'll get the contracts in place. That means we can use them.
But I also think we should give the homeowners an option on who they want to utilize as well.
And don't they have
I
to?
meant more so specific to just over the management side of it, not the
Okay.
actual construction side of it. Just making
The
sure that
management. Okay.
like internally that everything they're
Management,
checking
okay.
the boxes for us.
That makes
And
sense.
I
The
think they
management, okay.
would have to do permits and everything and go through various inspections and stuff like that to make sure they're up to code anyway, right?
Okay.
That was one of my other questions. I don't recall our permit fees and whatnot. Are those automatically waived, or how does? Or
Well,
is that
with
part of
the
the
roof,
cost, or
I
what's
think
the?
it's a different program.
no, but usually when a contractor is doing a roof, they actually implement that in their cost of permitting. So that's up to the contractor when they bid out the roof. That's in the scope.
I guess it depends on what, like, depends on what
Yeah.
someone's doing. I guess kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but they'll put that in their
Yeah.
costs usually. Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we go to the public and then we'll come back and see if we can't close this thing out. I know Commissioner Moore's here she's got her own little, boy, God.
We have Dr. Maury here as well, another elected official. I don't know if he wants to say anything for this. Okay. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
You want to do a public comment?
Yeah. Good evening, Council. The conversation went a little bit different direction from my presentation, so I'm going to
Oh,
add
I'm sorry.
up a little
I
bit.
think they want to. Did you open up public comment first before, or you her first? Because I think he was trying to say.
She's
Okay,
first.
so he wants her to go first. Okay.
Okay. I just wanted to remind you that this money comes from the Orange County taxpayers, from the monies that are usually gone to general county funds, mosquito control, jail, all those kinds of housing programs. And so the legislature passed this at least 30 years ago to help increase the property values and the health of an area. And so I agree with what your attorney said, that it's streetscapes and roadway improvements because that benefits the entire public, and will lead to the entire area to do a better job in terms of their health, safety, and welfare. Building renovations, new building construction, we talked about this, flood control initiatives, water and sewer improvements, parking lots and garages. Winter Garden used their money for a garage. They needed to get that to have capacity for their farmers markets and other vendors and business owners. Neighborhood parks was certainly in their sidewalks, street tree plantings. So that's another example of those types of expenses. On the next slide, just in case for some of the people are here, I just put in here so you could see the area. It was determined in 1990 that this area was blighted. The legislature allowed this legislation to take money from the county to help the city to improve the condition in that very particular area. You talked about this a minute ago on the next slide. You actually were talking about the hiring a contractor, but you'll see my recommendations are more on a business perspective to bring businesses and jobs downtown. And so you could take that same concept you had and apply it on a business level so we can improve all of downtown, not just the residential section. So that's an idea I had, that all of these things, when I talked to Gray Robinson the other day, they weren't as worried about the lobbyist. The lobbyist wasn't as worried about your balance coming out, just getting the projects in the list in case the legislation passes. But of course, we'll know in a couple of weeks. The session is almost over. So I was not contending with anything you've suggested or anything. I was giving you some additional ideas. Demolition of blighted buildings on Forest Avenue, that wonderful skate park. There's some buildings there that look like they could come down. And you've all been talking about A Street. And so demolition is certainly something that you could use your CRA funds for. On the next slide, I know there's a lot of interest from your Main Street group and others to get festivals going, and that street needed resurfacing. And I was hopeful that you had a continuing contract with the paving company, could have that done by October 1st. That was an idea I had for you on Station Street. Hopefully that would be something you could deal with at the last second if the legislation passed, and you could go very quickly. I also heard, Mayor, about the crosswalk improvements, but I have some good news for you. We did research. Alex, by the way, Alex, my aide, is here. His last day is going to Ashley Moody tomorrow, so we can all say goodbye to Alex's last time with me this evening. And so if you need anything from Ashley Moody's office, at least we know we all have a friend. Anyway, Mayor, because Park Avenue is a functionally classified road, the county could pay on Park Avenue to certainly just paint the crosswalk. But if we wanted to go with a raised crosswalk, that would be potentially something the county could pay for. But then the lighting features and your ADA sidewalks could come out of the CRA. And I would think, as the mayor said, you could do those fairly quickly. It was also suggested to me by some of your creatives that if we want to have more festivals, it's a real problem on Station Street that there's not street lights. That one, I have to say, dealing with Duke Energy, I'm not sure we could get that done by October, but I think it's a good idea if it could be functionally completed in time. This is a more aspirational that I threw in, providing parking area for events and markets, because I know that we didn't get Fifth Street going until that parking lot was improved. And it's just an idea because I've seen other CRAs in the area that have used their money for structured parking. So I was advocating just throwing a bunch of things in your budget in case it passes and not worrying about it all adding up at this point. Safety equipment, this was a real simple one. Been real proponent of the trail. If you've noticed, the county put over $1.25 million into your trail through town, and then the bridge renovations, which you'll all be receiving a formal invitation on May 31st to the bridge reopening event in the morning. And so you'll find I've been out on the trail every Sunday morning, and it would be nice to see some law enforcement out there. So it was just a suggestion of potentially, hopefully Cliff will think that would be allowed, some e-bikes for those officers that you are designating to watch your CRA and the West Orange Trail. Like the mayor, I had my wish list of buying property that's on Station Street. And I have visited numerous main streets all over the country and CRAs all over the state, gone to multiple summer conferences. And this one that I gave you from Havana is north of Tallahassee, and they used to grow a lot of shade tobacco. And shade tobacco was not being grown anymore, and they repurposed a lot of their older buildings into shopping flea market type of facilities that have now attracted a lot of tourists and people to their downtown. It's really helped them to renovate. Havana is a town of 1,500, and they were able to renovate their downtown with some of these tactics. Now, I'm really proud of what you're doing on Station Street with the apartments and the plaza. There's not much you can do on that one side that abuts the railroad track. And one thing that I have seen up in Michigan that Strong Towns promotes quite a bit, and all their material is quick build chalets, or they're basically sheds, but they have power and air conditioning. And I'm sure most of you are about ready to go visit the new halls on Fifth. And if you've been in there like I have, Ella Duke has got all these new high quality rated chefs with different types of food. But the way she built it out is small to bring them from their other locations. This is the same idea to get people downtown to shop. Everybody says we need shopping and dining down there. We've got the food coming. This would be a quick, easy way that I think you could get it going before October by buying these prefab sheds or chalets. Mayor, I agree with all of your ideas for the skate park. I have been over there. In fact, 10 to 8 the other night, there were 25 kids still out there. It is a big hit. And so anything we can do quickly at the skate park, because it is attracting families and wonderful people all over that trail system. And so anything we could do there was another thing I thought you might be able to get done quickly. Now, on something that could be done incredibly quickly, and I talked to the owner this morning. This is the old consumer veneer lumber area of town, and the owner is Dante Sandroni. Talked to him today. he said he would paint his building, and if we could use some CRA dollars and get one of the groups to paint a mural on the back. Now we're also incentivizing people to come up that trail, and a little more tourism and getting more people into town. If y'all remember, the trail is what revitalized Winter Garden, and we have a trail too, and I believe we can do the same thing. This one I'm not sure would be allowed, but it was just an idea. It was some historical markers. It's a traditional tactic. It's not particularly quick, but if you can get your language turned in and approved and send the check off before October 1st, that would be something you all could consider. My last, I think it's my last, yes. String lighting was suggested to me by your Main Street group because they want to have more late night festivals, and that would certainly be something we could do quickly to meet that deadline. I hope that that doesn't happen. I know the county does not want that bill to pass. We're not behind it. We're not lobbying for it in any way. I've spoken to Byron Brooks, the chief administrator for Mayor Demings, and if it does happen, I will be there lobbying to try to see if maybe we could set up our own internal program, because the county does have a vested interest in your downtown succeeding, all the other CRAs succeeding. And so we're not in support of this legislation, but if it does pass, I would look forward to working with you to see if we could continue something similar if it passes. And I look forward to, if you're having another meeting, to discuss some of my ideas or whatever the citizens have, just to add to the list so that at least we have a point of getting all that money spent before October 1st should the legislation be successful. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Speak. Come on down.
Reverend Jimmy Howard. I thank Sister Anderson for her presentation, for trying to help out our side. As I look at all what you presented tonight, the only thing that's benefiting us of all the money you're spending is only up there at the Alonzo William Park. No other money coming on our side. I look at the the walk trail. You stopped it at Michael Gladden. All you had to do was come down to 10th Street, and that would have upgraded 10th Street. I look at the buildings that you are trying to refurbish and give money to. But we got our Masonic Hall, which is a historic building in this community. We got Bethel Free Will Baptist Church on Park. They're eyesores. So the money that you are allocating for some of the residents, we need money for those type of buildings to try to upgrade those in our area. We need lighting in our area. It's a lot that we need in our area. I know we behind the 8 ball now because we didn't have any input on what you're doing now. None of us in our area knew that this money was being spent for what you're spending it there. I even look at the money you're spending up there to the park up behind the high school. If we had half of that in our community, we would be much better off than we are now. And it's just a shame the way the city is spending money across the track, but leaving us out. And so again, I thank Commissioner Anderson and Vasquez for what they're trying to do for our side.
Leroy Bell, Maud Helen. Again, I echo Reverend Howard. I commend Commissioner Anderson for the first time in the last 8 months that myself and Sylvester Hall have stood up behind this place here, that we have heard today that the citizen was ahead, and I appreciate that. Uh, Mayor, you mentioned yourself, the CFO, and someone else that made up that list with the Lorenzo William Park. The statute of the CRA 163 that the attorney alluded to, but 163 Part 3, it lays out how the CRA come about and how it is funded, how the money comes from the taxpayers. And it's set how the CRA is set up, that you guys are the advisory board. And along with the advisory board, these decisions are made by the advisory board along with two members of the community, correct? And you just sat there and you said that three of you guys on the, not the advisory board, but you, the CFO, and someone else, and the community wasn't even involved in it. This is where we have the shortfall between the community and the advisory board. The community need to be into these decisions. We just had a presentation. Did we have a presentation or did we have a campaign presentation? We haven't heard a wish list from this community yet. We have kids that over on this side, they can't afford the high cost of spectrum. When your administration came in, you're taking down the Wi-Fi. CRA can be spent on Wi-Fi where a kid can walk outside their door and sit down and do their homework. But then again, I'm hopeful that if the CRA do not sunset, I hope it be more key to the community, because for blackness, I understand that business need help also. We help put in air conditioners with CRA money, which wasn't supposed to happen. Now, you got businesses that, for profit, they're selling goods. They're making money. They can put in, to Commissioner Anderson's point, you have people over here on fixed income. They can't afford to do things. But if you're in business making money, you should be savvy enough to save money to upgrade your business. And to this propagate thing over here about, I just seen in the presentation about the food, where you bring in different type of stuff. I think it was last meeting when the lady come in and said she gonna bring in different vendors. No, that's for them to make money. If the city gonna make money, when a festival come out, people need to be paying a fee to the city, so the city can in return pay police officers to go out and police up and not take money from the citizen. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'm Clint Stanley. I ain't never think I'd say I agree with you 100%, Mr. Leroy Bell. But looking at the $250,000 budget, right? Correct? And we have up to $20,000. That's only what help maybe 22 citizens out of 459 in the area, if I'm correct. I'm thinking, why won't you up that budget? And just as well as you put the skate park in that side of town, can we do something for the youth in this side of town to give us access to bring about a difference in the change to give the kids of this community and the people of this community to do something. But looking at that $250,000, that's not enough money. So I'm looking at where basically an increase in that budget because you're only going to help 22, 23 people if you award up to $20,000. If I'm correct, that's maybe 22 people out of 400 and something people in this area, in the South Apopka area. So why not an increase to that?
Thank you. And give it all a shot. Give them
System, please. You can't put that back to the first page. It shows all the stuff they're gonna be doing. That one? Yes. Sylvester Hall, 3091 Rolling Hills Lane. It's sad how we think about our residents. It's sad how we think about people, especially the poor people. If we're gonna have one Apopka, we're only as strong as the weakest link. When people come through Apopka, what do they see? It represents all of us, not just those people. It represents all of us. I have stood here many a times talking about our responsibility as a community. Alonzo William Park, I'm surprised to see it up there because it got to be close to a year now. We talked about when we have events, the vendors don't have water and they don't have electrical hookup. I brought it up. Y'all tease me. Yeah, we'll look into that. Well, just like we just been looking. I see former Commissioner Kyle Becker here. He had a nice idea downtown area. We voted on it. We approved it. We approved the funding for it. What happened to it? It just disappeared, right? So I gave you all a picture. And when I always ask, you need to know that whatever decision you're making, you need to know how it's affecting your community. This is a business owner. Mr. Henry, he's a business owner. And you look at his barbershop where people are supposed to park, you just ran a trail right through it. And I say to the people downtown, do they want to be treated that way? They up here arguing about the finer things in life. Here he is, a business owner, and you just destroy his whole business that way. So is anybody going to advise him legally? What is his obligation? I mean, what is his recourse? Well, because clearly, if you had went out and saw that, I don't think we would have. Well, I take that back. You shouldn't have recommended that go through there without sitting down with him and figure out how we're going to work this out. What was going to be good with him? But nobody cared. He's just a little old small business guy. Nobody cared about him. And that's the problem. We don't get out and we don't look at the decisions that we're making, how it's going to affect people. We don't do that. And that's a shame. So I would like to see at Alonzo William Park, the same setup we have on the north side, right over there where I'm at. I like to see the same hookup for vendors, the electrical, the water. Like to see the same laid out parking spots, for them to park in there. I want to see it just like we had. And another thing we need to address is the parking at Alonzo William. And real parking spots where if you park a big old deuce and a quarter, it ain't hanging out in the road. And see, myself, Leroy, and others, all we just complaining about is just doing what's right. And sometimes
like Mr. Nestor, Commissioner Nestor, you get demonized for speaking up and saying, hey, this is wrong. You get demonized. But it don't bother me because my existence is my kids and my grandkids and their kids and their grandkids. What country, what city, what state, what country I'm leaving to them. So if they go anywhere in the United States, we should all have these core values as citizens of the United States. We should all have the basic, simple core values, and that's morals, integrity, principles, character. We should all have that. And when we conducting business, that's what we should do. So I would like to see some of those things uh, not only just talked about, but made a reality. And I would do everything in my power to hold each and every one of you accountable. And I'm not no ways tired. I'm just beginning, to be honest. Thank you.
Anybody else? No, you only get once.
Mario Hicks. Um, I've heard you all today talk about the plans for the community, and I would like to thank Commissioner Anderson for saying and letting the residents know that they're important and what they want really matters. After listening to and seeing the proposal, I believe that there should be $1 million allocated for those 459 homes that are in the CRA area. Since 2017 to now, I've heard that only $1,000 went to a resident. So that means that a lot of these funds have been going to business owners, to developers, but not the residents. I believe it would be in the best interest of this commission to increase that budget to at least $1 million so that there's a vast majority of those 459 residents able to take advantage of this program so that property values can be increased and those people that necessarily need it the most have that availability. Developers don't need impact fees waived and thousands of dollars. The residents that are on fixed incomes and property owners that have may inherited their properties and they really, really need these funds should be able to get them. We need to reconsider some of these plans and programs that set forth here today. And I just want to say thank you for hearing some of the residents this evening and Commissioner Anderson identifying what needs to be done in the community for the residents because this is a need. The funds are here. We've taken a lot of time and funds previous years to do all of these other things. We are in a time constraint on how fast we need to spend this money. And I think it would best see fit for it to go directly to the residents in the CRA district. And I believe it would be well received and the residents would be grateful for you all's support in that initiative. Thank you.
Hey, anybody else? Okay, well, let's bring it back in. And I'm just looking down the list. Member Anderson, what if we just took out the Edwards Field, what was how many upgrades, which is 300 and
5,000.
yeah, and just
So increased it to 300,000 and
sure
okay, so increased it so that was it
305.
305?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Take out what?
so we're going to take
The
out the
beautification.
Edwards Field. It's fencing and beautification,
Right, I see that.
sodding and beautification.
305.
Yeah. So take that out and then put that into the residential
The difference between the 305 and the 275, or what are you saying?
No. We'll just eliminate that one
The 305.
completely, and then we'll add back the residential improvement.
For the 305.
Yes.
Okay.
But if we had said, well, Mayor, you had said that the land acquisitions are low probability of happening. That's 480,000. Why don't we add that to it if that's not going to happen?
Well, we can always come back.
Did we speak with Quest, or is Quest for the 400,000? Because I really want to purchase that, because that is directly behind the Lunzaloon Park, and that'll be a great place to put a pool for that community. So I definitely think we definitely need to try to purchase that. That's something I really want to see happen.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay.
But if it's low probability,
Is it low probability, or are they open to it?
They're open to it.
Okay. So
and I think we've got a member of the board that's here tonight.
Where,
Mike could
who's on the
speak
board?
to that.
Who's a member on the board? The Quest board? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, from my understanding, so Kyle Becker, Winter Springs, I'm the chair, the chairman of the board for Quest. There's 3 parcels that Quest owns over off 4th. There's the parcel that the Adult Training Center is located on today. Just south of there's a parcel, I'm not sure what the size is, maybe an acre and a half. And then there's a parcel to the west, which is a larger parcel. I know that the administration has been in contact with the CEO of Quest, but the board has not had any conversation regarding these properties. There's been certainly no vote to surplus the property. So at best, we would just have to say that the board is considering it, but we've had no conversation on the topic.
So have the board have discussed liquidating any of those properties at any given time?
No.
So it's never been a conversation. And this is your first time hearing this today?
To this degree, yes.
To this degree, but you have heard it.
So I talked to our CEO, who indicated that the administration had reached out to him in his office and had talked about potentially acquiring property. To my knowledge, it was only the property south of the Adult Training Center that's currently there, not to the piece of the property to the left, because I don't think that would be on the table for us to consider.
So this property
So I don't know if I don't know if you have the ability to have it on the map, but there's
we got a map.
Yeah. The piece of property that abuts Hawthorne on the west side. So there's 2 parcels at play there in that L-shaped shading. So just call it the strip that's in the orange to the south of that building that you see, the treed area. Mm-hmm. That's going to be 1 parcel. That was the parcel that I thought was in question. And then you've got that large parcel to the left, which would span the entirety of Hawthorne from 4th down to 5th. So I don't know where the 400K came from. I mean, the property to the south of us, I think, has market value. The last time I looked at the property appraiser side of about 158K. I couldn't tell you what the left-hand property is. But knowing that if the land were to sell, and we would have to sell at the appraised value that the city got, because you can't go above that. I know that there's been other people that have approached Quest about those parcels of land that, if we're talking money to progress our mission for Quest, and I don't know if you're familiar with Quest, but Quest, we help people of all ages with developmental disabilities. That adult training center is just one of many assets that we have to serve our clients, one of which is Camp Thunderbird over off of Welch Road. We've got our headquarters down in Orlando. We're building the Quest Kids Academy, a $9 million facility down on 50 right now. So this is just one of many assets. And we have several group homes around Apopka that serve people that have total dependency need on the care that Quest provides. So every dollar, and I'll tell you that 95% of the funding that Quest gets is from the state. And so every dollar that we use, we are very purposeful on how we use that money. So to say that we would be limited in terms of knowing that governments can only take what their appraised value is and can't go above that to market rate, it has to be a part of the conversation. But like I said, we have our next board meeting next Thursday, and this will certainly be a topic of conversation. But I didn't want to come up here and say that we have talked about it, because we just haven't. I'm not trying to.
So do you feel that you guys will have an appetite to actually entertain an offer on this property?
I can't speak for my board.
Okay.
I mean, that would be like me going
So
to
no,
any
I
single.
just said,
Yeah.
I would say if you guys have probably talked about, I mean, you kind of understand what the vision and mission, what you guys are looking to do.
So and not to conflate topics here, but the reason why I'm here tonight is just to make sure that there's a piece of agenda item on your consent agenda for your city council meeting that directly impacts one of these pieces of property, because there was code enforcement fines that were assessed. The issues were taken care of. There was, I think, miscommunication between the two parties. But long story short, Quest staff worked with staff to come up to an agreeable settlement for that code enforcement. It's on your consent agenda this evening. I just wanted to make sure that that passed because that's all been approved. But that would impact that southern piece of property.
So moving forward, so should the city send an email and offer over so you guys can discuss in regards to this property?
Yeah, John, I mean, we had our executive committee meeting today, right before I came here. So John and I are aligned that, and John Gill is the CEO of Quest, we're aligned that we're going to be talking about this on the next the next Quest board meeting, which is next Thursday, the 24th.
How often do you board meet?
We meet every other month.
Every other month. So it's important that we present an offer so you guys to discuss at the board meeting.
Well, I think first and foremost, top of the mind conversation. I mean, if you all have it by next Thursday, I mean, even better. But I think the top of mind conversation, like you would in any other piece of property in the city, is determine long term. Do we have a strategy for that? We are on a growth hypothesis for our services. We serve about 500 to 600 individuals now. We want to serve 2,000 to 2,500. So you can only do that if you have ample space in which to do so. So whether or not we don't have a firm capital improvement plan relative to this property, we don't have strategic plan relative to these pieces of parcels, but that's not to say that we won't long term. And so the conversation that we have to have next Thursday is whether or not we deem these as true surplus.
That's it.
So,
Okay. So I guess
And we would need to get an appraisal on a CRA property, correct? Attorney Shepard?
Oh, well, yeah, you have your own purchasing policy, but you also have, if you're going to dispose of property, or we talk about acquisition or disposal? Acquisition, that would be per your purchasing policy. So yes.
Okay. So that obviously would take time, especially on the commercial side. It takes a little bit more time, and then there needs to be funds allocated for that, obviously. So I don't think we can get that done by next week, but you guys would have that conversation, and we can discuss, I guess, present something for your following meeting from there.
And that's not to say that, obviously if we have a meeting and there's an appetite from the board to deem this as surplus, that's not to say that we have to wait until 2 months from then.
Sure.
We can react to whatever offers on the table. I just want to make it known that I didn't want this to go too far, and you realize that our board has not even formally discussed this topic yet.
Okay. And that's very helpful too, to understand how we kind of game plan forward. So, and that gives us time as well to, if we need to reallocate these funds, if for some reason your group is not interested in disposition, then we can reallocate these funds to something else then.
Yep.
So
I want to clarify, Commissioner Nesta, when we did your purchasing policy, we specifically excluded property in the CRA because it has its own disposition process. So whatever you follow, whether it's get an appraisal or not get an appraisal, that's something.
But this is specific to acquisition, not disposition.
Yeah, but it's still not a part of your purchasing policy, which says for property outside the
And I was
CRA.
more so asking, what does the Florida statute state about CRAs and acquisitions
No,
within those?
you're good.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice
Perfect.
Mayor.
Thank
Former
you.
Vice Mayor, I appreciate it.
Okay, so the 400,000 is what you want to leave in
No,
right now?
we're taking 305 out. We're eliminating that Edwards Field
Yeah.
improvements, and we're going to have a new under the residential. Yes,
I got that part.
But if
I'm
are we
talking
taking
about
away
the
the
Quest
expansion
property.
of Kitland Nelson Park as well?
I was just going to leave it at that. That gets us to where we were trying to get to. But if we need to,
You're
I mean,
adding.
you specifically said that was low,
Okay.
like low probability.
Let,
So
let me tell you where I'm at right now with the amount available, 4,471,000, taking out the obligated funds, that leaves about 4.3 million. Taking out the 305, 275 at first, that's about 4.1 left. I'm considering that you might want to take out the trail, you want to continue the trail about 2.4, and that leaves about 1.6. So if you look at about 1.6 for projects other than the 305, the trail at 2.4, and things that are already obligated.
So let me ask you this, because residents obviously have shown that they don't feel that they have been involved in this process at all. And now they're just being educated on what some projects may be. So can we do another meeting next week, get more
Because
input from residents, and
residents,
then
Sure.
really drill down on what the residents want and how they best can benefit?
yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I will say this, because Mr. Bell is correct in the fact that the advisory board was not included in a lot of these conversations. This is why we're having these conversations right now, with the allocation of making this list, because this list was really presented to us.
We're not, it's not an advisory board. This is an ad hoc, obviously we have the CRA director, we've got our Parks and Rec, which is a lot of the funding, and obviously finance director. So we had to come up with something to bring, we could start it from zero, and
No, it's
we
too
would,
late for
right.
that
Well,
right now.
that was the whole point of getting the four people together to come up with something. And obviously that was a starting point. So, but why don't we just set the meeting, how does next Wednesday at like 6 o'clock, does that work for everybody? And
Does it work for the residents that care?
I don't know.
What day is that?
next
The
Wednesday,
23rd?
23rd.
What if we do, because there's a lot of residents that go to their parishes or churches on Wednesday nights. Could we do a Tuesday or Thursday?
Well, I think was it the flag football team or
Yeah.
the softball team is going to
That
be receiving a
Tuesday.
Tuesday. They're going to be receiving an award through the Orange County School Board meeting. So I know a lot of us want to go
And
to
we have
that.
student awards on Thursday. Can we do Monday?
So that's
Well,
the week out
Monday
of high
is
school
the
senior
Wakaiba
awards.
High School senior night.
Senior night.
And
So Wednesday
and
probably.
and the
Wednesday,
24th is the Kiwanis
So I think it's
Awards dinner and Bestwood Phone
So
in the
I think
so I
we just
think
do it
23rd.
23rd, 6 o'clock. Does that work? Okay. So we'll have we'll follow up. We've got kind of the marching orders, Bobby and Radley and Blanche. We're good. Okay. So we'll be back here at 6 o'clock. And with that, we'll close out the CRA meeting. Anything else for good of the cause? And then we'll take 5 minutes and then we'll be right back for city council. Sorry about that, folks.